Welcome to Business Insight, exploring issues and events of importance to business. Our topic today is getting new hires up to speed in a volatile economy. I'm Peter Marx. My guest is Keith Rolag. He's an associate professor at Babson College. Keith, pleasure to have you with us.
Nice to be here.
Tell me, what do you teach at Babson?
I primarily teach management courses, leadership, teamwork, organizational behavior at both the graduate and undergraduate levels.
Okay, well, that kind of leads into what's happening in business today that makes it important that companies need to get new hires up to speed quickly.
Well, certainly with the rise in the global economy and certainly, as you mentioned, a volatile economy, most organizations are finding that they whether it's through outsourcing, offshoring, growing, merging, acquiring companies, more and more people in an organization are new. They're either new to the organization or they're new to the merged organization, or they're, as a result of downsizing, new to a restructured organization. And so managers increasingly find that they have to, are interacting more with people that are new to their organization and finding ways to get them up to speed and become more productive, largely because in the past there may have been some time, there may have been some slack in the organization that allowed you to be patient as a new person joined the organization and got up to speed. But with the kind of competition that we face today in a global environment, there often isn't that time available to be patient in those situations.
I think it's harder to be a new hire in a new company or a new job or a new country.
Well, obviously, if you add all three, each one of those adds some particular stressors. But plenty of research has shown that being new to a new company is a fairly stressful thing for most people. As humans, we're not used to being new. If you look at the history of human evolution, most of the time humans were in small groups of 25 people, and research has shown that in hunter-gatherer societies, most people probably only knew about 150 people for their entire life, that they had knowledge of about 150 people. In today's world, you might meet 150 new people in the span of a week. And so we aren't often equipped to be good newcomers. It's a stressful situation for most people. And that stress and that awkwardness and that uncomfortableness can lead to people being reluctant to express opinions, reluctant to ask questions, and that can reduce their ability to kind of get the knowledge they need to truly be productive in the organization.
What kind of costs or damage is there to a company if they're, in a general way, not doing this?
Well, there was a study done by the Mellon group that estimated that probably around 1.5 to 2% of sales are lost, that the equivalent of money is lost in just getting new people up to speed in the typical organization. So it really hits the bottom line for most organizations. Others have estimated it to be around 2 to 5% of revenues, but it's just getting people up to speed and reducing the time it takes for someone to get fully productive is something that would definitely save organizations quite a bit of money if they've and increase profitability if they can find a better way of making them productive.
Are there any particular things on the opposite side, benefits, that you could point to for companies that do get their employees up to speed quickly?
Well, obviously, people want to be productive. And when they reach a higher level of productivity, they tend to be more satisfied, they tend to be more committed to the organization, more proud of what they're doing, less stressed, less awkward, less uncomfortable. And all of those can lead to a greater satisfaction with the organization and greater loyalty and greater commitment.
Kind of describe, in scenario or whatever, some of the typical ways that companies are bringing their employees up to speed that aren't working so well.
Well, unfortunately, in a lot of organizations, the orientation process, the onboarding process is often sort of an afterthought. And a lot of talent management programs and organizations, they focus on kind of two things. It's the recruiting part of it and working really hard to recruit the best people that they can. And then there's the performance management portion of it, which is developing a scheme by which you can reward your best employees. And what often falls in the cracks is what do you do in the first few weeks and months when people join the organization. I have seen in the number of interviews that I've done with new people, I've had a lot of, studied a lot of organizations and have gone in and talked to new people and asked them, to describe their experiences they had. What you find is that oftentimes organizations do a great job of wining and dining them and hiring them and making them feel really important in the hiring phase until they've signed on the dotted line and joined the organization. But I've seen situations where high-level managers and engineers have joined the organization to find that they didn't even have an office on the first day, or that they were told to wait in a conference room for their manager, and 2 hours later no one had showed up. Those kinds of events that happen in the first few days of a new person's career in an organization can set some strong first impressions that can have a lasting effect on how they view the organization. In general, most organizations tend to have some level of orientation. Usually it's a 1-day or a 2-day kind of formal orientation that gives them a general overview of the company and the technologies and the business processes that they have. Some do a good job of that. Others tend to kind of overload the new person with long lectures from people to the point where, after 2 or 3 hours that you just can't absorb the information. So there's a number of things. In general, most managers and actually most executives, there was a Korn Ferry survey done a few years ago that found only about 30% of executives felt like their company had a good orientation program. Most of them had a feeling that it was at best average to fair or poor in organizations. So most organizations have a long way to go before they can really have a strong program to get people up to speed quickly.
You've written about 5 myths that have to do with rapid onboarding or getting people up to speed. Why don't we kind of explore each one of them one at a time? First one, the best newcomers can fend for themselves.
That is probably one of the reasons why most organizations tend not to have a really strong onboarding program. They basically have the belief that if you hire the right people, you hire strong, independent people that are going to hit the ground running on their first day, you don't really have to spend much time onboarding them or getting them up to speed. What I found in talking to people is that the very qualities that we often want in new people, independence, self-reliance, often work against them when they enter an organization that's complex and an organization where the information is largely trapped inside the heads of other people. That in order for them to get productive quickly, they need to build relationships and tap others. But at the same time, these same people are feeling a strong need to prove themselves. They're feeling a strong need to demonstrate their productivity, demonstrate what they know. And so that there's often a reluctance from new hires to go out and ask questions.
They're much more likely to try to work it out themselves. Our higher education system has sort of socialized a lot of the graduates in particular to believe that the answers are either in the book or on the internet someplace. And so I found that a lot of new hires spend more time trying to figure out the information, trying to figure out their job, trying to figure out what they need to do at their office, at their desk, using the computer, and really working to build the relationships and getting out there and trying to get to know everybody and build the relationships to get the information they need to truly be productive over time.
The web makes things worse because there's so much more you can get or think you can get.
Oh yeah, I was talking to folks at a software company that had built some internal tutorials on some of the technologies that they were using, software technologies. And what they found, if they weren't very explicit about letting the new hires know that these were available, the new hires tended to immediately go out to the internet to find information about what they need, even though what they really needed to know, the organizationally specific information to get them truly productive, was in a different location. But I think the benefit of the internet is, in terms of orientation, is a really powerful, computers are a really powerful thing. But at the same time, if you if people tend to over-rely on them, they don't build the relationships to really be successful.
Somewhat related, massive information dump is always needed.
I was, in my interviews, I've been always amazed when I ask people, what did you do on the first day of your job? The most common answer was, I basically sat at my desk and I read either information, I either was given a bunch of manuals by my manager, or I was basically pointed to a number of websites on the company's internal intranet, and they just spent their time reading. And obviously for most of us, after a few hours of reading, you can't handle it that much. But in general, most organizations tend to dump a lot of information out of a new hire and kind of expect them to figure out what information do they really need to read and absorb, and what information is maybe nice to know, and what information is they don't need to worry about it for several months. But a new person confronted with these stacks of information, the vastness of either the corporate internet or the internet itself, tend to get either overwhelmed and kind of give up and try to make sense of this information, or they try to read everything. And then they spend weeks with this feeling that before I can really be productive, I have to master and understand absolutely everything that's available. And of course, neither strategy is really a key to getting productive quickly.
Cursory introductions are always needed.
Most organizations and most managers tend not to do an extremely good job of introducing their new employees to the rest of the organization. And in particular, introducing newcomers to the key people they need to build a relationship in order to be really productive on their job. When I've talked to newcomers, only about a third of them have been happy with the kind of introductions they've received. And there's generally a feeling among new people that, or at least among some, that it may or may not be appropriate for them to approach somebody on their own and introduce themselves. Partly it's extroversion, introversion, partly it's cultural. Certain cultures, I think, are more accepting or not accepting of a person taking the initiative to introduce themselves. But for most people, they want that introduction because that introduction is a permission slip for future interactions. It establishes a relationship. But unfortunately, most organizations, what happens is on the first day of the job, the manager walks him around the office and says, hi, I introduce you to John or Bill. And it's a whirlwind of meeting people. It's usually only the people that are in the office that day. The typical new hire rarely remembers everybody because we don't have the capacity to remember all those names and all the information. And it never really establishes the kind of starting relationship that allows a new person to come back to that person a week later or 2 weeks later and say, hi, I've got some questions. Can you help me in a certain area? The other thing that managers often do is just wait until the next big meeting with everybody, and then they stand up to the new person and say, hey, everyone, this is Jennifer, and this is everyone. And of course, that's not really an introduction. It makes people aware that there's a new person there. But it doesn't build those relationships. And you can't count necessarily that every newcomer is going to feel comfortable enough introducing themselves to strangers. But they'll take care of that on their own.
What's the sort of information that would be in an introduction?
Well, obviously, besides the names, and making sure they're clear enough so that you can remember them oftentimes. It's challenging for people in that first moment to capture somebody's name and remember it. But it's understanding both person's roles and explaining what the roles and responsibility of each person so that those two people in the introduction can start to understand what's their relationship. And then some small talk to help both sides to see if there's any commonalities that they have, common interests or whatever. What you want is just simply enough information so that it makes it less awkward for the newcomer to approach this other person in the future. Of course, once they've done that, then it's so much easier to do that in the future.
First assignments should be small, compact, and quickly achievable.
But there's a lot of research that has been done over time to show that you really want to make certain you give your employees a challenging first assignment. And being successful in their first assignment has been shown to predict their promotion, basically their career 10, 15 years later. What's happening in today's world with the complexity and the need to be able to tap the relationships of other people, the danger of a nice, small, compact assignment is that, yes, they may be able to succeed and be successful at it, but if they don't build, if they don't have to build relationships with other people in order to achieve that, they really not got themselves integrated in the organization, and it makes it much harder for them to tap themselves into future projects. They don't have the visibility that's often required for other people to be aware of what they can do, and therefore get involved in task force and other kinds of groups. But it's important that the first assignment get people connected, more so than it purely just being something that they can tackle on their own and demonstrate that they have the knowledge to succeed. So again, if there's a theme that I've seen in the research, it's that the secret to success in today's organizations is helping people build relationships. And the extent that what you do from operating strategies helps build that and to make them more productive quicker.
And let's see, the fifth myth. Mentors are best for getting newcomers integrated.
There's certainly a real value to have mentors. And there's plenty of research to show that when people join an organization, those that develop mentor relationships, usually with senior managers, is a very positive thing, not only in terms of their career development, but in terms of their satisfaction and loyalty. What I found in talking to people that in the first few weeks and months, what people really need and value isn't necessarily a high-level senior mentor. It's a buddy. It's having somebody that they can ask the typical newcomer questions, whether it's simply, where's the bathroom, how do I get office supplies, who I need to talk to in the IT department to get my computer configured. It's somebody that the new person feels is easy to approach. That they've already made the other person, the buddy, has already made a commitment to allow the person to come and ask questions. And they're already open. And they say, please stop by. Having a buddy was a very positive thing. And it's one of the things that, most common thing I've asked people what is the most valuable part of getting up to speed in an organization. It's often not the formal training that they talk about. It's often the buddy that really helped them kind of get up to speed.
In this context, what are some things that managers should be thinking about in the whole area of, hey, we've got a lot of new people coming on board? How should they kind of approach the issue?
Well, obviously, it probably depends on how many new people they're bringing up to speed. If you're in an organization that maybe not be growing as quickly and you're bringing ones and twos on a kind of infrequent basis, you can approach things a little differently than if you're in a rapid hiring situation where you have dozens of people arriving in the organization every week. Structure. But I'd say that the most important things from an overall strategy standpoint, you can start at the beginning, which is on their arrival. Human resource managers call it provisioning, but it's simply making certain that the person has the computers, the office, the materials, the technologies, the things in place so that they can start to try to be productive on day one. And as I said, I've been amazed at how many organizations do really well in hiring, but on the provisioning, it's often not there and ready in place when they first arrive. There's the introductions. There's having some level of formal training, some kind of overview of the organization. When I've asked people after several months to reflect back on being new in an organization and said, if you could have gotten more information when you first arrived, what kind of information would you want? The most common information that people feel that they lacked or they didn't receive was information about how their organization, their group, was connected to other groups in the organization. They learned a lot about the particular group that they were a part of, but they felt like they often lacked the knowledge about the overall organization and how other groups connected with them in ways that allowed them to understand how they fit in the organization and ultimately be more productive. The other piece is finding ways to get new people connected, not only to their coworkers, but to keep people outside. And again, introductions is part of that. But there's other ways. Lunch is a terrific and often underutilized event for getting people connected. Everyone has to eat. And by structuring lunches, it's a less stressful, less awkward place for new people to ask questions. So there are a number of activities that people can do, that managers can kind of think about as they try to get their new people up to speed.
This is an interconnected world. We've got U.S. companies here, U.S. companies doing business overseas, overseas companies, foreign companies in the United States. Is there any difference in terms of how on-board, rapid, bring people up to speed works or should work in these different types of scenarios?
Well, certainly, competing in a global economy, and most organizations now are running it, they have to have staff in different places. Poses some additional challenges in getting up to speed. There's obviously the country cultural challenges in terms of not only hiring, let's say, you set up a new office in Europe, and you're trying to socialize and onboard new employees from Europe into not only the overall culture of your organization, but probably the unique subculture, the unique blend that happens inside the European branch of your organization as well. So there's certainly national cultures challenges. There's also just simply the distance. As organizations expand, the key information that people need to be productive is probably in another country. It's 4 or 5 time zones away. And as you said, the horizon, the internet and other communications have made that easier for people to build those connections. But it's still hard. It's time and geography. And outside of mind still works. This is still a powerful influence. Whereas it may be easier now with email and video conferencing to potentially have the ability to reach key resources all around the world. Unfortunately, the anonymity of email and instant messaging allows people to potentially ignore your request for information a lot easier than if you knocked on the door and walked into that office, if you were coordinated looking. So I think there's a number of challenges that organizations are facing in trying to figure out a way of orienting new people when they're scattered around the world in multiple organizations and cultures.
For a company, let's suppose that it's local, but still 2 companies. One is, say, in the Boston area, it's got 50 to 100 employees. There's another one that all the operations are here, but they've got 1,000 or 2,000 employees. How are the challenges different? If they're serious.
In terms of bringing people on, a 50-person versus 1,000 person.
Yeah.
Well, obviously there's a certain luxury when you have 50 to come likely co-located.
Yeah.
Also, 50 people is a number in which pretty much everyone's going to know everyone, and it's not going to take that long for you, especially if you are proactive in making the introductions and then getting to know pretty much the entire company. So it's a lot easier to build relationships, get to know people, and then through that, I think, become more productive. And so there, what I've seen with small organizations, it's a matter of having enough interactions and making certain that the new person has really gotten to know everyone in a 50-person organization. Sometimes you may not. A new person may get to know these 5, 10 people, but not the others. But again, it's easy for a manager to kind of wrap their mind around this challenge and make certain they really truly get connected. With 1,000, you've not surpassed the ability of most people to really understand the organization and certainly not to meet everyone. And most likely with 1,000 people, they're scattered in a number of different office buildings or even countries and geographies. In that situation, the real challenge is to help new people understand the complexity, understand the organization and how they fit in. And then, as a manager, identify who are the key people that they need to know. Usually before the person even arrives in the organization, they sit down and say, all right, what are the 25, 30 people that this person really needs to now build a relationship in order to succeed in their first assignment. And then as the person arrives, being very strategic about making certain you've introduced them, you've structured meetings or lunches or something that allows them to get connected. And then over time, you reconnect back with your new hire and basically ask, have you met these people? It often comes down to kind of rethinking or kind of reframing how you look at the newcomer onboarding experience from not asking the question, what does this person need to know? But really thinking about who does this person need to know in order to truly be productive in their job. And so I think as you get to larger and larger organizations, managers just have to be much more strategic in thinking about who are these key resources and how do I get new people connected to them.
We've only got a minute or so left, but I'm sure Babson has made all this stuff with you there. How do academic institutions in general do in terms of bringing people up to speed as compared to companies, both faculty and staff?
Well, that's a great question. I'd say we're probably just as good and just as bad in that area. I think we also, as other corporations, have certainly plenty of challenges that we have in terms of, for instance, at Babson, we've got 200 faculty members that are involved in teaching there. So it's not, to that point where it makes it a little bit more challenging for new faculty to get to know everyone. That was, let's say, 10, 15 years ago, when we were a much smaller institution. So I guess to answer your question is that I think we do a reasonably good job. We've certainly got ways that we can improve as well.
Terrific. Well, I think we'll close with that. I'd like to thank our guest, Keith Rolag, Associate Professor from Babson College. I'm Peter Marx for Business Insight. Thanks for joining us.